time. Queer time. Queer times.
Queer.
Hi, Harrison.
Hey, Kristen.
Welcome to Queer Times. I'm Kristen Becker.
I'm Harrison Fish.
And we just hit record in the middle of a conversation about whether or not Harrison has agoraphobia.
Literally. It's hard. I lived in Provincetown for 10 years, and one of the reasons that I don't want to say why I left, but I want to go out again. And sometimes in Provincetown it's a little tough because you like there's Stop and Shop or Commercial Street, and you run into everyone you know, which can be overwhelming at times if you are overwhelmed by that sort of thing. And I feel like it not only I've carried over some of those feelings into my new location, but I've also, like, the city scares me a little now. Not in like I'm scared of, like, a lot of people would be like, Oakland's scary, and then you realize they're just scared of Black people and homeless people. I'm not scared of Black people or homeless people, so it's not that. But what I mean is, like, I don't feel like cool enough to like be seen.
Number one, you're definitely cool enough. You're wearing a camo hat with something bright orange on it. What does it say?
Is this WNB gay?
Exactly. That's, in my book, pretty cool.
No, honestly, this is my only plan to make friends in the Bay Area. I'm going to wear this hat around, and I hope cool queer people who like women's basketball say hello to me and tell me that I can watch the game with them.
I feel like, all right, may I give you unsolicited input into your life?
Do I have an option to say no? I'm just kidding.
I mean, we are making a podcast, and this is what you brought, and so here I go. A couple things. Number one, I think it makes perfect sense to have a finer tuned spidey sense right now because you were living in a very specific bubble that was not only very queer, but was also someplace you had built a reputation and were able to move through town.
For good or bad.
For good or bad. But, and both of those things can exist for good and bad. Right, simultaneously, in a way where there is definitely a big fish, small pond situation. And I will tell you that when I moved here from Buffalo, I was a big fish, small pond there. And it was weird to come here and be like, wait, but don't you people know what I've done and who I am? Right. And to just like have to, I did have the benefit of still being a performer. So I still could put my face on a poster somewhere and be like, oh.
Right.
But I think it makes sense for you for it to take a minute to recalibrate it, right?
Yeah.
In regards to whether or not you're hot enough, I don't think that's real. You're obviously cute.
But that's not a question.
You're obviously cool enough, but I think what I think is surprising is I think you'd find more people who thought what you're into was cool where you are now than where you left.
Definitely.
And so I think I think what you just said about like you and be gay or whatever, I think that who is watching unrivaled games in a group setting where you are? Find the Dyke Bar or whatever. If you need to make it fun, just put me on FaceTime and just bring me with you.
She can vouch for me.
If you need to have a lesbian sponsor to go to these events in the Bay Area, but I don't think you do. I feel like there's a lot of queer people there. I think, I don't know. I think it all makes sense, and I hope you're not beating yourself up too much. And it's also like hibernation season. Like it is what our bodies want to do.
Yeah, that's exactly what I've been doing. Like, I was sick for that week and I started to feel better, but it was like the week of Christmas. So the few friends that I do have in Provincetown, Sunny, Trevor, Tim, Tonio, are all out of town visiting family. So I really committed to the hibernation in that I basically stayed home for the entire week of Christmas, cooked myself some delicious meals, made some of my favorite snacks, and played Breath of the Wild for a full week.
Amazing. That sounds great. That sounds like a great way to ease into a new life.
Yeah, and also Breath of the Wild, not to be like a little nerdy about it, but like it is kind of a practice in isolation. Like Breath of the Wild is a Zelda game where you're playing as Link and he's just solo running around this expansive world. So it was, not to be a little hippy dippy, but it was fun to be alone playing as Link, who's also alone, and it's kind of just like it was therapeutic.
You were method video gaming life or something.
I did love Breath of the Wild, but I did want it to be gayer.
I have a confession. I never got into Zelda.
So this was my first Zelda game. I had never been into it before either. I had never played a Zelda game. This was my first Zelda game ever. And I did like it. But I guess what I mean is like Zelda is kind of that classic character in a video game where they're kind of a blank slate, so you can very much put yourself onto them. Like, it's the running joke that Link doesn't talk.
Okay.
So, and basically a bit about the Breath of the Wild is like you have to connect with these 4 people from your past. Like there's 4 characters that you have to connect with in order to get to the end of the game. And the first one I connected
No.
with, they were like, "Oh, I was secretly in love with Link." And I was like, "Oh, all of these people are going to be secretly in love with Link." And then and it was this like young mermaid type character. The second one I went to is this big boulder of a man who lives on the top of a mountain. And he was like, "Hey, buddy." And I was like, this is gay to me. This twink and this bear should be in love with each other.
And at no point in time in the story do they become in love with each other.
No.
I think in your mind they're definitely in love.
Yeah.
Also, is
just
there
for me, Link reads very pansexual. I just feel like he would love everyone and everyone would love him.
hard they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, giving a hard they pansexual vibe.
Yeah.
Everyone loves Link. Link loves everybody.
Yeah.
The artist formerly known as Link.
Yeah. How was your holiday?
When did we talk last? Christmas Eve, give or take, right around?
Christmas Eve.
Right. Was in Buffalo. It was great. A friend, saw family. Not enough time. There's never, I thought there was going to be enough time. I thought I'm coming in, I'm doing the show. I'm leaving a full week after the show, which is a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I still didn't get to see, I think I'm underestimating the actual recovery time from travel when you're not just stumbling drunk from city to city. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that like when you're just rolling into a BAC of a solid, like, 0.05 just as life, you're less susceptible to being tired. I don't know. I just feel like, or I'm just getting old. I could just be getting old.
Not to say
so-
but I'm feeling that as well. It's like I feel like I'm aging, as we all are, but
it took more out of me than it used to. And even like driving back, right? I literally drove the whole way. It's like 9.5, it's like 10 hours from Buffalo. But that's the one thing I know how to do. I've probably driven more than I've done anything else in my life. Just because of comedy, right? Like just like, and being not famous. So you don't get flown places a lot of the times. You're driving places a lot of the times. But I got here and the next day I was wipe.
oh yeah.
I definitely, yeah. So, but
you
it was
also,
great.
Also, like within your travel, you always kind of underestimate. You're like, oh, I can get breakfast with this person and lunch with this person, then grab a drink with this person, and you're like, I can't do all that. Like one meal with another person is like that takes me out for the day.
Socialized out, yeah. So, but it was great. I am gonna try to go back in February, I think, just to like reconnect with people when it's not the holidays. And we were even talking about maybe doing Christmas, not going for Christmas, but going for like the week after Christmas, or like where kind of the craziness has already happened, and then we get to like actually hang out with people.
That's kind of
for an extended period of time.
Yeah, that's exactly like kind of what I've been deciding to do lately, especially now that I live across the country. My parents were here a couple of weeks ago, so that's one of the biggest reasons I didn't go home for the holidays. But it's if I go home at the end of January, it's so much cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
There's no obligation, meaning like, I know this sounds maybe shitty, but like I don't have to see all of my extended family. I can kind of like see the extended family that I really do enjoy and want to connect with. And I do. Like when I go home, I see the people. I don't know if any of my aunts or uncles watch this, but
I was actually did you see me doing the math in my head? I'm like, I wonder if anybody in his family listens to this.
I think the ones that I do connect with would be the ones most likely to be listening.
Yeah. And so for them, he's not talking about you.
No, exactly. They know who they are.
Yeah.
But and then there's just like, if I want to see my couple friends who live around there, I don't have to worry about them being like, oh, well, we have to go to this person's house and this person's house, and then we have to run the kids here. It's like, they're like, yeah, come over. It's Thursday night. Have dinner with us, you know?
Do your parents live like where you went to high school?
It's actually funny. So my best friend from high school, her name is Allison. She lived about 2 or 3 miles from my parents growing up in the town I grew up in. My parents have since moved about a half an hour away, as well as my sister and her, but they still live as close. Like they basically all moved to the same town.
So I guess my question is, when you go back, are there people outside of family? So I graduated high school in Louisiana. And once my parents and my sister left Louisiana, my holidays became more Buffalo based. And I have a bunch of family and friends in Buffalo. That's where my family's originally from. But I was very much, from 4th grade through some of college in Shreveport. And I did notice this year that like I miss that part of the holiday because I used to see those friends, once a year, maybe every other year or something like that when my family was down there. And now I'm like, damn, how do I do both?
Mm.
Because those are people, people I went to high school with, people who I was really good friends with, just, the people I worked with, or, whatever, when you're
Mhm.
in your early 20s and you make, I think, the strongest friendships. And I was just curious if, like, when you're home, you're also like, oh, I want to see, 4 people from high school. Or,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, there's not so much, but also yes. Like, there's people that I do try to see when I go home. Especially, it'll be more so now that I live so far away because I'll go home for a longer period of time. Like when I was in P Town, I'd go home for a day or maybe overnight. But now it's like I live across the country. I'm gonna have to fly home for a week, and
right.
I'll have more to, and obviously my goal will be to see people, so I'll have more energy and time to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then how do you, when you come home, not come to P Town if you've already flown all the way across the country, which is a whole nother fucking.
Well, I don't want to be shitty on P Town, but like
Here it comes.
there's a small group of people I like to see from Provincetown, probably smaller than most people would expect.
And you're
I
like, they'll drive to Boston.
kind of, but like
Yeah.
honestly, as I was leaving Provincetown and people asked me why, I kind of just said I mostly said it's time for a change, but like the list is so long, it involves so many more serious things than that, and there's maybe with time I'll want to go back to Provincetown, but
I
maybe
mean, you could
not
just spill it. New year. You should leave all of these in 2025. What is it, Harrison? Exactly.
so much.
Okay. We can't get
It's
just a
like
little.
I always toy with like not that it would be burning bridges, but like I feel like people don't understand the shit that people live in people that live in Provincetown, the shit they go through to live in Provincetown and the things that you put up with to live in Provincetown. And not to say like mine is worse, but like I know people are dealing with this or dealt with the same things that I was dealing with while living in Provincetown, but I can't imagine. I hope that it wasn't as much for other people.
Damn. All right.
Mm.
But you don't want to talk about it yet to everybody.
Should that be our New Year's episode, me dragging Provincetown?
I don't know if it's dragging. I mean, it sounds like it's you processing your experience here and unpacking what your real feelings are. And I think that who better to say this to than the void, if not a therapist, and also me, who will push back. Maybe that's why you don't want to say anything because I'm going to be like,
Oh
well, Eric.
no. I mean, it is a few things. At the point I decided to leave at the beginning of this summer, it was like I kind of had a meltdown because I didn't have a job.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I didn't have a job is because I had looked back at the jobs that I had in the 10 years that I had lived there, and which were many. You know how it is. You kind of end up working all over the place. And of those many jobs, there was one job that I had in those 10 years where it wasn't an expectation of me and a guarantee that I would show up to work and management or ownership would be on premises, blackout drunk, slurring, yelling at me, every single one of them except for one. And I just realized there was nowhere left to work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not going to get into specifics, but like, I don't want to work in an environment where I am abused by an alcoholic or a drug addict and
Regularly.
daily.
And I think that's the key component because people are like, oh, you work in bars, right? I think that people will be like, oh, but yeah, but you're a bartender, like, and people are going to drink where they work on their days off and like whatever.
No,
But
this is while they were working.
right. And I think, and I think those are the important things to point out, right? Is that
Mhm.
there is, when you said there's everyone kind of does every job here, that is something that I always really liked about Provincetown was that it felt like the great equalizer.
Mm.
That, when I first started doing shows here and I was just a touring performer, our cocktail waitress was actually a retired rocket scientist, right? And
Totally.
that was amazing, right? And his husband was the VP of a bank, and like I was like, wow. And then you came into your third life, your fourth
Yeah.
breakfast, and like now you're these people. And I always thought that was very cool. On the flip side, you have people who have a bunch of money who want to go play at the gay beach with their money, and people who have never, in some cases, owned. And I'm not saying that it's all a lack of experience. Some of it's just people being assholes. But, people who maybe never used to run a bar or something and they just used to drink all the time and they thought it would be fun. And so now they're like, oh, I'm going to run a restaurant and they have no fucking clue what they're doing. Right. So there is a little bit of all that. Sorry, not to.
No, you're right. But basically, I realize I'm like, there's nowhere for me to work in an environment that is healthy for me or anyone. And what's so hard about that is if you do start to point things like that out or complain about it, people will look at you like you popped their balloon because so much. These people are spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to visit there, or they're spending $1 million on a shoebox to live there. And if you start poking holes in the fantasy of what they think Provincetown is because you experience it in a different way, they will hate you more than the person who you're talking about. And not that I'm trying to make anyone hate anyone, but I'm just like, I'm over here being like, oh, yeah, my bosses were blackout drunk. I've been sexually assaulted by them. I have been abused by them in work while they're blackout drunk. They're more mad at you for pointing that out. And they're like, oh, well, this is P-Town. You have to get used to things like that. And it's like, I can't, and no one should.
You can't, and no one should. And number one, sorry about that happened to you.
I mean, it happens to everyone in Provincetown. Well, right.
It happens to men in Provincetown
Mhm.
and some straight women. Not, you know what?
I imagine it can
There
happen.
are
It
some
can and does
grabby
happen to
lesbians.
everyone. Yeah.
It can and does happen to everybody. But I do think from a percentage, statistically, men have a higher percentage of that happening in this community just because there's so many. And because there is so many, I mean, I guess you're specifically speaking about people you worked for. I'm thinking of the culture of vacation land where people come here from all over wanting to get shit hammered and act inappropriately. It's similar to what happens at the French Quarter. This is in a more gay way, obviously, but people go on vacation and they spend a bunch of money in this scenario to feel very safe, to be shit hammered walking home, and assume that the worst thing that's going to happen to them is someone might grab their dick. And they are here for that in a lot of ways. And I would not want to have to navigate the boundaries that gay and queer men have to navigate in this community.
I mean, that is true, but consent exists in every situation. You know what I mean? And you can be a person who understands that, or you can be a person who doesn't.
I think that when we talk about the demographics and specifically the age of the population here, when like you and I are young and we're not young,
Right.
and you realize that everyone is a little late 90s, early 2000s coded, right? And I see it all the time in Summer of Sass because I am bringing in younger queer people, and that's reflected actually in the places that I recommend that they work. There are some places that I can't really recommend because I know that they're going to get yelled at, or I know that it's going to get weird in some way. And so I don't recommend it. And if they ask about it, I say, here's what I know. You know, this person might yell at you like they're managing a restaurant from 1993. And if you're okay with that, that's on you. I don't recommend it because I don't think that's a healthy workplace, right? And this is to say, everyone can be a human being. I think that we need to allow for more humanity in our workplaces. I know that, like, as someone who in the 70s wasn't even a person in the workplace having a vagina and all that, I get that we needed to tighten things up, but I do think that the people that we spend a lot of our time with have to be able to be a little bit of a human being. And if we could get them to learn how to do that without being abusive, that would be really cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think most people might know that, but I hosted a morning talk show in Provincetown for 5 years. And I only, I mean, this is on me, but I only spent money on that project. I didn't make any money from that project. And over those 5 years, supported, uplifted, thousands of Provincetown community members by having them on my show, featuring their parties, their events, their shows, their nonprofit work. Like the list goes on and on. Right.
I was on that show for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah. And I think over those 5 years, I think I got 1 comp ticket and 4 t-shirts in return. And obviously there's not a quid pro quo of involved with any of that, but to have supported and uplifted, and I guess you could argue that maybe that's not what I was doing, but that was my mission, was to do that. But to have uplifted and supported thousands of people, and the list of people that I would say uplifted and supported me is I could count on my fingers. Maybe that's a little me being bitter, but like that is also one of the reasons I left is because I felt like I had given so much to that community, and what I got back from that show was mostly people not liking me because of it, hating me because of it, being mad at me for not choosing them to be uplifted. You know what I mean?
I think that you were, again, pointing out things that not everybody, I think it's the same through line as the employment situation was pointing out things that not everybody wants to, number one, talk about because this is their la la land.
Mm,
I think that's a huge component of it. Also think the general transient nature of Provincetown is something that makes it difficult. Number
mm,
one, to stay on anybody's radar. Number two, to kind of make those connections that go beyond the morning show appearance, right? Like I think that it's hard to do that here.
mm,
In a way, I feel like my first 5 or 6 years here, I was always struggling with, like, because I was quitting drinking, and it was like, if you're not part of the party, what are you then? Right? Like, if you're not here to get fucked up, where is the community? And I think there was, a little bit of a boost of that around the pandemic, and I feel like it's starting to wane again now. But do you think I think also you had a lot of friends move away,
mm,
and some loss kinda peppered in there on top of
mhm,
that. So it all, I don't know. I think do you, all right, I have two questions. Do you think that when we started the conversation, you were like, oh, I haven't really done any of that in San Francisco. And do you think that there is a holdover from here in some way? Do you think that there's a connection in some way? Or do you think that you're just like having a hard time kicking off in a new place because it's fucking giant?
Yeah. I mean, I think that is mostly it. As much as like the things I did in Provincetown were, I don't want to say easy to do, but there's so much opportunity. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
along with Wake Up, like me and Bob put this project together. We reached out to some people. They helped us with that project, helped us get it off the ground. And because we're in Provincetown, people wanted to listen. And also people wanted to be on the show. Like if I started some sort of YouTube, like morning talk show anywhere else in the world, I can all but guarantee that Murray Bartlett would not be my first guest, you know?
Right. There's definitely that component of P-Town, and that's why some of us are still here.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's a big part of it that I'm sad to leave behind.
Yeah. I'm excited for when the WNBA season. I just really want to see you working for the Golden State Warriors because it makes perfect sense. I
I would
like
love that.
it is something that you're so passionate about, which is why I just really feel like, I'll do the research. I mean, I realize this is a lesbian thing, this ladies football, this ladies basketball, but I feel like leaning into that and is going to really help you find what you didn't have here.
Mm,
Truthfully. I mean, there wasn't that didn't exist here.
no.
We can't even let you talk about it on this podcast, to be honest.
Right, literally.
I do
I
think
get
we should do that side thing though, where we talk about women's basketball,
I would love that.
not in the audio, and then we could
A separate
just drop the clips on TikTok because you know what I mean? Like we don't have to put it in the actual podcast. We'll just do it. We'll do this, and then at the end we'll be like, all right,
yeah.
cut that TikTok time. Well, now that you hate Provincetown,
Baby, I barely scratched the surface.
yeah, I mean,
The list
we're
goes on and on.
we have time. I feel like this is the new year is when you cleanse yourself of all
Totally.
gripes.
I mean, I guess with Wake Up, I realized that I had this realization that there was a specific project that was touted as, oh, it's the community coming together. And we had the organizer of that project on Wake Up in Provincetown for 5 years in a row promoting this exact project. And every year they'd be like, all your favorite local people are part of this project. And not once did they ask me or Bob to be a part of it.
Mm.
You know, it's like you've been doing this project for 5 years. You're touting that as community oriented. You're involving 20 to 40 to 50 community members in it. We are offering our platform up to promote it, and you are gladly accepting. Yet when you're thinking, what 40 people should I ask to be a part of this project, it doesn't cross your mind to.
To be honest with you, I do hear that. That is something that I dealt with, felt like a lot when I first moved here. Like that was something that I really struggled with, where I was like, why does no one think of me as a fucking performer? Like
Mm,
I don't get it. Why before I moved here, I was a performer. I came here as a performer. And then I just realized that I don't know. It doesn't bother me anymore. And that's not saying it shouldn't bother you.
It did stop bothering me. Like it used to like really enrage me, and then I kind of was like whatever. But I think part of me allowing myself to be whatever about it was also me letting go of wanting to be a part of the community.
Were you ever like, hey, I'd love to do that? Because I feel like that's the other part is like, there has to be this moment where we do go, hey, could I? And then if it's a repeated, whoopsie, what, you wanted to do that? I didn't even know.
But also it's like I don't feel like everyone has to do that. Why do I have to do it? Even though I'm doing more. And again, I don't want to like follow my story.
just
Like,
don't
I
do
do
enough-
so much for other people, but like I did. Name anyone in that town who did as much for other people, other organizations, anyone. Yet when they think of 40 people, they don't think of me. It's frustrating.
It should be frustrating, but did you do enough drugs?
Maybe that's it.
I mean, it's wild, but yeah.
It's like you have to be out drinking with people
You have to
5
be,
nights a week, connecting
you have
with
to
them.
be, and frankly, that part I don't think is much different in a lot of places, depending on the industry, but in the performing arts, for sure. In the culture of people hanging out. And I wrote a whole piece about this years ago about why a stand-up comedy festival shouldn't have somebody who's a known abuser be at the head of putting anybody anywhere, because the networking that has to happen when people are drinking at bars, and like you've got to have safe people around. And I do think there is a lot to be said about people who are in the drug circle and people who aren't, and people who are in the going out every night thing where it's your family that you see at the bar. And I used to be that person 15 years ago. Do you know what I mean? I can't be that person forever because no one should, because otherwise you die,
Totally.
But I do think that that is a component of,
Definitely.
especially in the parties and the bars of it all.
I mean, going back to the what you said is like maybe some of the things I said or talked about on Wake Up were things that people didn't necessarily want to hear. And I do understand that, and I do agree with you, but there's a story that this is reason number 3, but my housing got messed up at last season, where I had lived in the same apartment for 10 years. It had been an apartment for 40 years with people living in it. And my landlord applied to be a part of the lease to locals program. And part of that is you have to get the apartment inspected. And when my apartment was inspected, like I said, an apartment that has existed and has been lived in as an apartment for over 40 years, all of a sudden couldn't be an apartment because of certain egress issues, things like that. And I understand that. It was frustrating. My landlord did everything he needed to do to fix it over time. But after this had happened, I talked about it on Wake Up a little, and someone very, very, very high up in Provincetown town government, maybe the tippity top, approached me and said, hey, I just want to let you know that this didn't happen as retaliation against you.
Okay.
And I'm just like, I didn't think that for a second, because I can't think of a single reason of something that I've done that would make local town government feel that they would need to retaliate against me in a way that is so severe. You live in Provincetown, you know what it is, as to mess with someone's housing.
Right. Do you think, devil's advocate, do you think, just out of curiosity, I want to go back and watch the clip now from that show, because if there was an exaggeration on how it had been an apartment for so long.
Honestly, when I talked about it on the show, all I said is something is going on with my apartment. So if anyone has any housing leads,
Okay.
I would love to receive them.
So it wasn't well, this has been an apartment for so long. Why is it suddenly now a problem? That, you know, I could see them being like, hey, like, this is just, we wouldn't have even noticed if we didn't have this new lease to locals program. And the only way that they're going to give us money is if nobody's, because on the flip side, that's exactly what you want to have happen as a person. As a person, you want, if a wealthy person is going to get a tax credit from renting a place, you want that place to have a door to escape from if there's a fire.
Yes.
Like,
but
so you believe in that.
I do believe in it, but I think also, like, the apartment I lived in had 2 walkout exits, another door that led to a staircase up. And basically the only reason was
and pretty big windows to crawl through.
Well, that was exactly it. The windows in my bedroom were not big enough to be considered an egress.
They obviously didn't see your summer form.
That's what I said. I was like, I feel like they're calling me fat. But But I think another frustrating part is like I understand that this is a level that's been set, and I agree. I do want all apartments to reach a level of safety. That's why those laws are in place. And if my apartment didn't reach them, I think that yes, that should be fixed. But at the same time, I also know that there are a handful of basements in town, in Provincetown, that have one staircase up and no windows, and the floor is lined with mattresses, and Bulgarians sleep on those mattresses in shifts so that restaurants can continue functioning, so that the tourism economy can keep on functioning. And I have a hard time thinking that the leadership doesn't know that and isn't turning a blind eye in order to maintain that happy place. The oh my god, I can go get blackout drunk on any Tuesday I want.
I think it's a little bit from column A and a little bit from column B.
Mm.
And I say this as someone who has flirted with the idea of the SERVE program, which, I believe that we should have young queer people from this country or from other countries, but specifically on the LGBTQ part of it, coming and living here. Summer assessed says 18 to 20. I'm looking at like 22, 23, 24, 25-year-olds just graduated college on break from summer and had met with the town and people at very, very tippity top of it and town government and had mentioned, this could be a really cool thing because there's plenty of people who house J1 workers. And they kind of vocalized like, we don't really have the staff to go into all of these rentals that pop up during the summer. Like we can't even, they were honest about that. And I said, well, that would be what we would do from the SERVE program is we would go and inspect these properties to make sure that they met our standards. And they actually really liked that. In that, if there were any glaring errors or it was moldy or like anything like that, we could be like, hey, like we're not going to work with people who are providing housing that's substandard, right? So I'm not, that I believe, I'm of the school of Disney, right? Throw up in your costume before you take the hat off, before you take the mouse head off, and just ruin the illusion of the most wonderful place on earth, right? That's certainly Provincetown. But I do think there is, I think it's a little bit of both because I do think that because of the size of the town and the government, there isn't a robust staff to police those things. And something like the lease to locals is a trigger that is a tax incentive that's going to get more things involved and more revenue. It's just going to get more involved versus how long has so-and-so Silva been renting that basement in, how is there a basement? That's a Sears Roebuck house that was built in 1940, right? Like, I think there's just a lot of that that's here.
Yeah.
And it gets caught up in things like this.
But I will say, you said you wanted to do the SERVE program, which would bring like young queer people, trans people, LGBTQ plus people to town to work in town, but businesses don't want that.
Well, this is the thing. Some do and some don't. What they want, there's been a few points of contention. Number one, can they sleep two American kids who don't know each other in the same bed? No. And that's something that I've run into is that the way that American people who own businesses want to house their employees doesn't necessarily jive with how young Americans today want to live. And they do get away with that when they bring in J1 students, for sure.
Another reason is like bedroom space is limited. And to your point, also like bedrooms, young Bulgarian kids in Provincetown, it's been my experience that a lot of them are willing to live in situations that a lot of young American kids wouldn't want to live in. But also, even beyond that, even if you do like a 15, 20 years ago, most of the people working in restaurants were young queer people who were also singers, also performers, also artists. And that is what kept the fact that Provincetown is an art colony thriving. But businesses don't want bedrooms wasted with those people. They want to fill their bedrooms with Bulgarian kids who they can say, oh, I have this Bulgarian kid who's in my bedroom, who is in a bedroom that I'm housing, who's going to work 40 hours a week at my restaurant. I'm going to talk to my best friend who also owns a restaurant. And then those will also work 40 hours a week at the opposite. They want Bulgarian kids to work 100 hours a week and take up one bed. They don't want young queer people who are going to work 40 hours a week and then try to be an artist.
I think that I think that is very real. I'm not convinced it's everybody.
I'm not, oh, it's definitely not everybody, but I
And
do think
so
it is. I mean, I don't want to, in the 10 years since I lived in Provincetown has changed so much. And I know it had been changing for years before, but I feel around the time of the pandemic, Provincetown is no longer allowed to call itself a queer art colony. It is not a safe haven for queer people and artists. It is a safe haven for second homeowners and gay white men who won capitalism. That is what it is a safe haven for. And I know there are so many people trying to hold on to and perpetuate the idea that this is a queer place, that this is a artist colony, and I would even say maybe no one more than you, or you're at least in the group of the people trying the hardest to do that. But I think it's so frustrating that the enemy and the person that you're fighting up against is people who you're like, I wanted this to be an art colony for queer people. And people are like, but I want to buy this house to make money. And that kills me.
I believe we are at a precipice. I think it could go either way. I've lived here as long as you've lived here. How long did you live here?
I moved there in 2016.
Okay, so I've lived here a couple years longer than you lived here. I agree that it has definitely, I've said it before, I'll say it again, the billionaires are making the millionaires uncomfortable, right? Like, and that's certainly a thing. However, I do think that the convergence of the nationwide political climate and honestly the international political climate is going to reaffirm the need for these spaces in a way that we haven't really had in a while. And in the same way that I believe there will be more lesbian spaces, even though we were almost out of lesbian bars, I believe that with some intentional effort, I'll believe in the good nature of people. And I know that makes me sound really fucking stupid, but I think that we are at a turning point here. And I think that I haven't given up all hope yet. I've seen more housing go up in the last 2 years that is town sponsored or mid-rate, which don't get me started. I think it's ridiculous that prices here are even near San Francisco or New York or Boston because we don't have a fucking hospital. But anyway,
I'm paying much less in Oakland than I would be paying in P-Town.
no, exactly. And I think that I get it, we're a hot spot in the summer, but if you live here all year or even 9 months out of the year, you are literally very far away from an emergency room. And it's something I think about the older I get. So I feel like there is progress happening, and I think it's heading towards some changes that could help shift the general dynamic. Will there still be an influx of very rich people coming here every summer? It will be for as long as it's safe. Yes.
I agree. And obviously, I think affordable housing, market rate housing, and the work that Provincetown is doing to create those is amazing. But everyone always wants to say, oh, that we could do this or we could do this. And the only thing they won't say is like, we could just tell the rich people no. That's never the option. No one ever, we know what we need to do, but it would upset rich people, and that will never happen.
I mean, have you met those people? They're a lot to deal with.
Terrible.
They're a lot to deal with.
Terrible.
Sometimes they're a lot to deal with. So,
But also, like you said, you want to trust the good human nature. I will never trust good human nature of rich people. Rich people are
But there's-
selfish. That's why they're rich.
but there's never more of them than there are of us, especially right now. So I don't need to
I
trust the
think
good nature
I
of
think
rich
the
people.
pandemic changed that. I think the pandemic used to be every once in a while you would hear of your friend losing their housing because it sold and someone's going to use it as an Airbnb, or it sold and someone's going to use it as a crash pad on the weekends for themselves. And once the pandemic happened and everyone was able to work from home, everyone was like, oh, I can work from home from Provincetown. And it exacerbated those things happening tenfold.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was trying to get an apartment for Sassers. That I know, I for sure agree with that. But that's also ending. That was a thing, and now people are realizing if they're here in January, they're nowhere near a hospital. Right? Like it's a thing that's starting to, I know it just based on how many requests for people wanting to live in the Sass House in the off season that I didn't get this year. People are choosing to not spend the whole year here.
Right.
And I'm interested to see with this new housing situation, and if there's any way to enforce that it is actually people who are living here at least 9 months out of the year, 10 months out of the year, whatever, what that does to the year-round community and what that does to the community as a whole when you have, another 60. Doesn't seem like a lot, but it feels like a lot
Mm.
in a community this size.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes down to it, I love Provincetown for what it is. There is so
You love
much
Provincetown
magic
for what it
there.
used to be.
I think what it used to be that I loved still exists. It's just so much smaller, and I got tired of fighting for it
Right.
because people started to hate me because I was fighting for it, and I was like, I don't need that.
I think that makes sense, and I think that everyone knows when it's their time to wander.
Yeah.
I think that I remember I was talking to, I think it was Eric Sussman a few years ago before he
Mm.
moved away, and I was like just really frustrated that I wasn't able to find the money for SAS, and just kind of being like, if it's not for you, maybe you should just move on. And I was like, I guess you're right. I guess I can either accept what it is or I can move on. And I feel like that's what you did. You moved on. I chose to do neither and make something else happen. That
Well,
was just luck.
for me, it's like it was a place that I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life because I truly loved the community and I loved being a part of it, and it is a magical place. And I feel like sometimes people don't understand what Provincetown is. Provincetown is maybe, and I think probably, the only place in the entire world where it is a queer community. I know people are like, what about Palm Springs? Palm Springs has a large queer community, but the community in Palm Springs isn't queer. You know what I mean?
I
Meaning,
do.
like,
Yeah, no, it's the only place you can be a majority.
yeah, you have to come out as straight if you live in Provincetown. People are going to assume you are a queer person. And I
And
remember
I would listen, to be clear, if I lived anywhere, I would have to come out as straight. No one would ever see that coming. They
Right.
would never be like, that one huff stick. Like never.
Right. But it's like when I was talking about this with someone in Palm Springs who had grown up in Palm Springs, a younger person, and I was like, "Oh, well, Provincetown's the gayest place in the world." And they're like, "Yeah, right. We have 15 gay bars." And I was like, "Oh, I guess that's true. We don't really have any gay bars. We do have 2 straight bars though,
Yeah.
because if it's a bar in Provincetown, it is a gay bar because the community there is gay."
Yeah.
And that
now-
is such a magical thing, and I'm so happy to have been a part of that for the 10 years in which I lived there, but
All right. Well, now you got to go out in San Francisco and make basketball friends.
yeah.
Go find a place.
Should
to
we call this
watch.
episode Harrison's Therapy? Harrison's year-end therapy?
Sure.
Yeah, I think we should. Let's call it Harrison's Therapy.
Harrison's end of year therapy session.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, listen, like, subscribe, tell your friends.
Yeah.
Your New Year's resolution listening audience is to tell more people about Queer Times Podcast.
Yes. And tell
okay.
us you like it.
Yeah, we
We
would
love
like
that.
we want to hear that we're good at it.
Yeah.
All right. Love you.
Queerly. Bye.
Bye.
Queer is in.